So as I've been doing these family-related One Piece videos. I did the Mother's Day one, I did the Brother's Day one. I'm actually going to be doing two Father's Day ones. One is going to be pre-time skip fathers, and one is going to be post-time skip fathers. Um, and the one exception to this is going to be Judge, who's going to be listed with under the Sanji section at the first part, because I go through the Straw Hats and the Straw Hat related parents type things. So we'll go with those first. But I did the Mother's Day ones, and I have a few things. I did, as I said, I am doing mostly the fathers that are either fathers of the main characters, whether biologically, in like Dragon's case for Luffy, or Yasop's case for Usopp, or an adoptive or a father figure like Dr. Hiroluck for Chopper, or Tom for Frankie, or something along those lines. Kiroshiro for kind of Zoro, and things like that. So we'll go over those. But then also there's the father figures that are like very big father figures in certain arcs, even if they're not necessarily related to the Straw Hats. Like Vivi, Nefertari Cobra, who's of course Vivi's father. Vivi was kind of a temporary Straw Hat for a while. And then she stayed with her father and everything in her kingdom to help, keep her kingdom safe after what, of course, had happened with Crocodile. Not that I blame her. Her kingdom went through a lot, and having their princess there that had been gone for so long makes perfect sense. So I'll be going through some of those, plus some of the other fathers that are quite integral in the arcs. Even if their kind of role as a father isn't necessarily integral in that arc. And then, of course, the same rules will apply to the second half of these two videos. The second one will be the post-time skip fathers. So that'll include, King Riku III. That'll include Kiros, who is of course Rebecca's father. That will include Neptune. That will include Pound from Whole Cake. That will include Kaido from Wano and stuff like that. So there'll be two videos that go with that, just because there's a lot of fathers. There weren't quite as many mothers, but there were still quite a few mothers that we see throughout the course of the story. And I didn't end up going over every single one. I don't think I even mentioned Koala's mother, who was, of course, was like around for like a couple of panels, and still allowed the men the fishmen who brought her daughter back to her to be attacked by the world government. So, so we'll start at the top of the list. Top of the list is Dragon, who is of course the biological father of Luffy and the father figure of Sabo. And in regards to this, we don't know that much about, we know nothing about Luffy's mother, except there's, all the theories. Oh, she was a celestial dragon. Oh, she's a member of the Revolutionary Army. She was Ivankov. I don't think his father is Ivankov. I don't think that Luffy's mother is Ivankov, because unless somehow Dragon had a hold of like the Memu no Mi at some point, like cut out the fact that Ivankov, was Luffy's mother. But I guess it's one thing to like erase 9 months. That would be kind of a hard thing to do. And Ivankov doesn't seem like she would they would be quite interested in having that happen. There's, of course, all those other theories out there about who Luffy's mother is, but this is about talking about Luffy's father. Luffy's father is, of course, Monkey D. Dragon, who is, the most wanted man in the world, or the most wanted criminal, or whatever the case may be. Has, one of the highest bounties as far as we're aware. We don't know if he has a higher bounty overall than what Roger had, because Roger has the highest bounty that we've seen so far. But when it was active, of course. But we don't know what Dragon's bounty is, and even his bounty is not for piracy. It's because he's the leader of the Revolutionary Army. And he, of course, is Luffy's father. And as far as we're aware, Dragon just like left Luffy with Garp when Luffy was maybe a baby, maybe a couple of months old or something like that. He left Luffy with Garp and is like, "Hey, Dad, I gotta go off and lead my Revolutionary Army. I had this kid. His name's Luffy. Raise him, whatever. I might show up at some point in the future. I might watch him from afar or something like that. Have a Makino at Party's bar, kind of keep an eye on him. There might be this red-haired pirate guy that might show up in a couple of years. He'll be good for Luffy to be around." Garp pirate. And obviously Garp obliged, or it could have just been like Dragon left Luffy in a basket on Garp's doorstep, and Garp's just like, oh great, another one. Like in regards to, you know, Ace, because Garp had to raise Ace too, as you know, to a degree. But you know, we don't really know that much about, you know, Dragons met Luffy once, and Luffy didn't even know that it was his father, and they didn't even talk. It was Dragon saved Luffy at, you know, Log Town when they were leaving. He saved him from Smoker. And, you know, it's like, Dragon has had more of a relationship with Sabo than he ever had with his own son, because, you know, we know that, you know, when the Great Terminal was burned and everything, when, you know, everybody in Hightown burned the Great Terminal, that, you know, Dragon and Ivankov and the rest of and a bunch of the revolutionaries showed up, and they, you know, freed all of the, you know, the people that were there and got them on the ship. And then of course, Dragon found Sabo after what happened with him and how he lost his memory, and then he took Sabo back with him, and then he basically raised Sabo, not as his own son, but I would assume as some form of a father figure, with, you know, Kuma being there, and of course Sabo would have seen all the rest of them, and of course Sabo grew up to be the, you know, the chief of staff of the Revolutionary Army, and now of course he has the Marimari no Mi. The question that I have is, did Dragon know that Sabo and Luffy were friends? Did Dragon know that until Sabo's, you know, amnesia went away, and he, you know, he saw what happened with Ace, and then his memory all came flooding back? And like, did Dragon then say, oh yeah, you mentioned that before before you had amnesia, you had mentioned that. Sabo just glares at Dragon. Why didn't you ever tell me I had brothers? Why didn't you ever tell me this? Dragon. It's assumed that at some point in the story, Dragon and Luffy will meet. Don't know exactly how that meeting is going to go. Luffy didn't even know what his father looked like until he saw his wanted poster or his picture or whatever in the newspaper. I think that was on their way to Wano that happened. No, that was on their way to Whole Cake Island that happened, that he saw his father's picture. And of course, we don't know exactly what happened to Sabo at the moment. We don't know, you know, where Dragon is at the moment. We're assuming that Dragon is probably still on, you know, Ivankov's island with the rest of them, with the, you know, Nakama, on the Nakama Island. He's probably there with them. I think he's there with them and Ivankov and Koala, but Sabo, we don't know what's happened to Sabo. Hopefully that'll be revealed soon. And of course, still on the line of the monkey family, we have, of course, Garp to Dragon. I will go over like Garp's relationship with Luffy in the grandparents video when I get to that one. But Garp and Dragon, we don't know exactly how much of that relationship is still good. Dragon obviously trusted Garp enough to leave his newborn son, or leave his son with Garp, which at least implies something. Garp's loyalty is obviously very much to the Navy and to the Marines and everything, and to the world government, but he also very much, you know, he very much loves Luffy, very much loves Ace. I think Garp met Sabo a couple of times, but that more falls under like the grandparent grandparent relationship. But you know, Garp loves Dragon. I have no doubt about that. With as devoted as Garp was to Ace and Luffy, I'm very much assuming that Garp loved Dragon as well, and I'm assuming that Dragon still loves Garp. It's just they have very different ideals. And then of course there's the whole theory that like, oh, Dragon was a Marine at one point just like his father, and then he saw something horrible, insert whatever you think said horrible thing is. Yeah, maybe he witnessed a Buster Call, maybe he witnessed something else. We know that Dragon was at Roger's execution, and then right after that was when he went to go and start the Revolutionary Army. So maybe something to do with that flipped him, or just before that made him, you know, realize, oh, this is not good. Maybe, I was gonna say maybe Dragon was involved in like having to hunt down all the women that may have had Roger's child, but I think he was out of the Marine. If he was a Marine, he was out of the Marines by that point in time. Also, I don't think Dragon would have necessarily agreed with that concept. So we don't know exactly where Garp and Dragon stand on the relationship right now. Do they still hate each other? Is there still kind of that bond still there? And so we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. We're going to assume also that at some point we'll have to have that 3 generation moment happen where we have Garp and Dragon and Luffy all interact with each other, and like Sabo there too. Um, have that moment there where they all have to interact with each other. Maybe it'll be at that big war that we think is going to happen. Maybe the revolutionaries will show up and help the Straw Hats because Sabo. I'm watching through the Dressrosa arc right now, and of course we have the moment where Sabo tells, Fujitora that, oh no, or tells Fujitora and like Koala to a degree of like, no matter what I am, whether I'm a revolutionary, whether I'm doing this or whatever, I will be a brother, first of all. I will go to Luffy anytime that he needs me. I will do that. Because I couldn't be there for him, because of my amnesia, and then I couldn't be there for him after what happened with Ace, and I will be there for him as much as I can now. And, so we'll see what happens with that. I hope that'll be a very interesting moment. It might be an emotional moment. It might be a funny moment. They may all just start picking their noses at the same time, since apparently that seems to be a D clan trait, or at least a Monkey D family trait. Because I don't think we've ever seen Law pick his nose, as far as I can remember. But moving on down the line, we have Luffy's kind of other father figure, who is Shanks. Shanks was, I would kind of put Shanks in the category of somewhere between like a brother and father, and I would kind of lean more towards father, just because, Luffy had Garp around every now and then, but the other closest thing that Luffy had to a mother was, Makino and Dodon. There's, of course, the whole theories about Luffy's mother, and even there's the theories about, like, Dragon's mother. Was Dragon's mother a celestial dragon? Like in, there was a webcomic that was done that was a very good one, that was the Return to Reverie from the Library of Ohara. That they did a whole lot of research on that, and I very much liked it. I liked that theory that, Dragon's mother was a celestial dragon, and that he was there at God Valley when whatever it was that happened at God Valley happened. He witnessed what happened with, the end of Rocks, supposed end of Rocks and everything. So that'll just be stuff that we'll have to see what happens with that. But Shanks and Luffy, in regards to that relationship, we know, of course, that, Shanks gave Luffy his straw hat and everything after, he saved Luffy and lost his arm in the process, which just leads into that whole theory of, wouldn't Shanks have been strong enough to take care of that Sea King on his own, or was he trying to make a point to Luffy or something? And even now, Shanks is still seems extremely protective of Luffy. I mean, he showed up at the war and everything and ended the war, which is just an amazing moment. It's just like, yep, we're here. This war is now over. Luffy's gonna go now because you just took away his brother in front of his eyes, and now he's gonna go, and all the rest of the pirates can escape and everything. Shanks, that's gonna be a very emotional reunion when like Shanks and Luffy end up meeting for the first time, and of course, Ace learned how to do the proper thank you from Makino to be able to properly thank Shanks for protecting Luffy from the Sea King. From the Lord of the Coast when he was a kid. There's the whole theories that like the end of the series is either going to be, when Luffy returns the hat, it's either going to be to Shanks himself, and then Shanks is going to just, give it back to Luffy and say, no, you give that to someone when you see the same thing that Roger saw in me and that I saw in you. You give that hat to someone else when you see that in them. And, or along the lines of, or is Luffy going to put that hat on Shanks's grave? I don't want it to be that one. I don't want Shanks to die. I don't want Shanks to die. I don't want Luffy to die. I don't want any of the Straw Hats to die. We'll have to see what happens with that. But of course, we don't want them to die. But it all depends on what I didn't want Ace to die either. But we'll have to see what happens with the rest of the story. With however many 100 some more chapters there are to go. Down the line, we have the next kind of father figure for the Straw Hats, who is Kiroshiro, who's of course Kuina's biological father and Zoro's kind of, well, master sensei type thing, but then he's also kind of like the closest thing that we ever see to a father that Zoro has. We know nothing about Zoro's birth parents. We don't know if if he was born in Shimosuki Village and then he just, decided to challenge that dojo where Kuina lived, or there's the concept that he was like roaming around as a child with wooden swords, like fighting all of these, dojos and like beating their strongest students and taking their signs or whatever. I think I heard that somewhere. I don't remember if that was specifically something that they just did in the anime for filler or if that was just what I don't think that was in the manga. But of course, Kiroshiro. Yeah, there's, sorry, Koshiro. I always get those names mixed up. I'm sorry, it's Koshiro. If you're like, no, that's the Wano guy. I'm sorry, it's Koshiro. Names were spelled similar and I have dyslexia. If you haven't figured that out by anything so far. In the story, we know that Koshiro was, of course, the master of this dojo, that he is a descendant of the Shimosuke clan, that his father was the one that, founded this village and founded the dojo and everything, and had come from Wano, that him and Kuina have Wano lineage and everything, that, the Wado Ichimonji was probably, it may have been made in Wano. Possibly, we don't know that yet. I don't think that's been revealed. But of course, we know about Kuina and Zoro's rivalry and everything. And then that turned into them choosing that they wanted to become, the best. They both wanted to become the best swordsmen. And of course, there's that moment in the anime. And I've actually only watched it in the 4Kids dub. I have not actually watched it in the original dub or the Funimation dub, where it just seems like Koshiro was horrible to Kuina in the fact that he said, oh, you are very, yes, you're very strong for a girl, but at some point your body's going to change and you're going to become weaker than a man. And, at some point when Zoro gets to a certain age, he's going to be stronger than you. And I'm like, I really freaking hope that was not what he actually said, because that just makes him seem horrible. And I mean, I know that he comes from Wano, where there is kind of that concept of that, women can't be samurai, women can't be these amazing sword fighters and everything. But still, that's just, why would you say that to your own daughter, who is the strongest student you have and has continually beat Zoro like 1,000 whatever times that they've had matches? 100 or 1,000 times or whatever that, that Zoro and Kuina have, fought against each other, and she's won every single time. And like, all you do is put doubt into her head, and I just, if that's really what he did, I don't like that. And then of course, there's the whole theory of, I had heard this theory somewhere, and I really hope it's not true, that like he either poisoned Kuina and then pushed her down the stairs or something, or whatever the case was, so maybe he killed Kuina, and I'm like, I really freaking hope that's not true. And I really just hope, I didn't want Kuina to die anyway, or it maybe brought up, oh no, she's not actually dead. Okay, then where is she? But no, I'm pretty sure Kuina is dead, unfortunately, but, Koshiro seemed to be a very good trainer to Zoro, and I just hope that it's not that, oh no, he killed his own daughter so that way he could have Zoro be his heir to a degree. And I'm like, I really hope that's not true. I really hope. Down the line, the next Straw Hat parent, or the next Straw Hat father, is Genzo from Kokoyoshi Village, who is, of course, the father figure to Nami and Nojiko. Genzo and their mother seem to have an interesting relationship. There's definitely a lot of flirting going on there. There was a lot of flirting going on there between him and Velmir, which is just kind of funny to watch. Whenever she makes him turn red by making whatever comment she makes to him, usually sexual. We see how protective he is of them. We know that he has the pinwheel on his hat that he wears because when Nami and Nojiko were first brought to the village by Belmir, and Belmir has them, that he wanted to make Nami laugh, and she just kept crying. So he put a pinwheel in his hat to make it funny, and that made her laugh. And he just wanted to make her laugh, and that's what he did, and it worked. And it doesn't appear like he's taken it off of his hat since, because he still walks around with the pinwheel in his hat. Even after Nami is no longer on the island, even for the whole time that she was part of Arlong's crew, that pinwheel was still there. And of course, we know that and I don't think I mentioned this with Belmir, but of course, Nami has her tattoo. I don't remember if it's on her left shoulder or her right shoulder. I can't remember off the top of my head, but she has her tattoo that's, the pinwheel type thing with the tangerine. And, so that's a representation of both of her parents. And, Nojiko and Genzo still seem to be around each other quite a bit. He never stopped seeming to have a relationship with Nojiko throughout the whole time that Nami was, of course, part of Arlong's crew. And, of course, him, along with the rest of the townsfolk, had to play along like they didn't know what Nami was doing, and they had to pretend like they hated her. And I bet that killed him every time that he had to do that. Just made him die a little every time that he had to pretend like he didn't care about Nami. Every time he had to pretend to reject her whenever he would see her hurt or sad or whatever, when she would come back, from one of her treasure gathering expeditions before she would, have to go and then spend time drawing maps for Arlong and everything. And, Genzo is, very supportive of Nami when she leaves. He even kind of gives a little bit of a shovel talk to Luffy, if I remember correctly. He gives, Luffy a shovel talk, I think, when Luffy, wanders up to the Belmir's grave marker, the wooden cross and everything that they put up for Belmir. That, Luffy had wandered up there, and, Genzo was there, too. And he, kind of, Luffy, of course, bows to the grave. And Luffy, bows to Belmir's grave, and he has some respect for the dead. Luffy does seem to have some respect for the dead. I'm pretty sure Makino and Garp kind of beat that into him, I think. Or maybe Dodon did, I don't know. But, Genzo kind of seems to give Luffy a shovel talk, because he's like, if you ever make Nami cry, if I ever hear that you made her cry, I will hunt you down and I will kill you. And I'm like, yes, sir. Please don't do that. And of course, throughout the, whenever we get the touchbacks on the cover pages, or when we get the chapters or whatever, where we get to kind of see, Nojiko and Genzo and the doctor and the kid that's now working for Nojiko at the Tangerine Farm, or Minkin Farm. We see Genzo there. He still seems very proud of Nami. They keep putting up her bounty posters, and then he complains about how sexy she looks in them. And I'm just like, dude, calm down. So I'm pretty sure whenever Nami ends up getting back to Kokoyashi Village, Genzo is going to be extremely proud of her and everything. And of course, we have the moment during the Arlong arc when Nami was, she was trying to convince him, just wait a little longer and I can re-earn all of the money after, the money gets taken by, the rat marine. And, rat, mouse, whatever he was supposed to be, horrible little thing that needs to be punched in the face and then sent flying. I don't remember if Luffy does that or not. Nami punches him, or Nami hits him with her bow staff. I remember that one. But he doesn't get exactly what he deserves, because he deserves a lot worse than that. But, Genzo is just like, Nami is just like, just stop. You fought enough. You've fought for us enough. You've suffered enough. Just let us go, and we will go and fight against Arlong. And of course that leads to, when Nami, stabs her arm and everything, where the mark from, Arlong is. And of course that leads to her asking Luffy for help and everything. And that leads to, Luffy then going and, destroying Arlong Park with the help of Sanji and Zoro and Usopp. So, those play out. And, Nami says that Genzo is kind of the closest thing that she has to a father. Down to kind of the next Straw Hat father, that is kind of a absentee father, might be the kind way of putting it. We have Yasopp, who is of course Usopp's father. Yeah, there's a lot that goes in there with Yasopp. Pretty sure he was around for a little while when Usopp was a baby, before Shanks and the crew left you know, Fuchsia Village, they may have swung by, you know, Gecko Islands and Syrup Village, and, you know, I don't know if he would have gotten the chance to say goodbye to Bakina before they left or not. I don't know. But you know, I don't know. It didn't quite seem like it. I mean, like, Usopp doesn't seem to have a problem with the fact that his father went off to become, you know, this pirate and is now part of a Yonko crew and everything like that. He probably was quite aware of that. Well, maybe not as aware of it in East Blue, but he became aware of it later on and everything. And, you know, Yassop may not know that his wife's dead. That's going to be a very interesting conversation, as I mentioned back in the Mother's Day video that Usopp and Yassop are going to have about that. It's like they're like in the middle of like a sniping match, like you know, because of course they're both snipers. Yeah, they're like in this middle of like this sniping match, like maybe they're back to back, like having to deal like in the giant whatever big battle happens at the end of it, and you know, like maybe Shanks and his crew help Luffy and his crew, of course, because Shanks wants Luffy to become the king of the pirates, and there may end up being something where like Luffy and his crew have to kind of go up against Shanks and his crew, and it might end up being that, you know, Yassop has to go up against his father, and it may not be like, you know, it's not going to be like a death match type thing. It might be like the Davy back fights, like we've seen. It might be like with that, only with, you know, better rules than what Foxy used. We might get that fight instead, and it might be like Yassop and Usopp do like a, you know, like a marksman competition type of a thing, and maybe you know, maybe Zoro goes up against you know, Shanks or someone else on the crew that's a sword fighter, you know. Maybe Nami and whoever the navigator is on Shanks' crew have like a navigator off or something like that. That would be an interesting thing. Okay, find this island. Go. Type thing. I'm like, how does that work? That would be a very interesting thing that they could try with that. I mean, like, that'll be an interesting thing to watch. But I also like the idea of it being that, like, you know, Usopp and Yassop have to like maybe work together at some point. Like, they're just like they're being attacked by like overrun like either a ton of Marines or a ton of, you know, Blackbeard's crew or whatever. And, you know, maybe, you know, Van Auger's off in the distance or something like that. And like maybe Yassop has to protect Usopp while Usopp's trying to take out Van Auger. And, you know, Yassop's taking care of like all the, you know, all of the grunts and everything that are coming from, you know, Blackbeard's crew, all the, you know, all the nobodies, and like, you know, maybe Usopp gave him some of the gave him like a version of Kabuto, you know, his giant slingshot, and gave him some of like the the pop greens and said, "Dad, just like fire these into the crowd." Okay. What were those things you gave me? They're called pop greens. I like them. Where did you get them? Usopp tells him about the Boeing archipelago. Like, they're just like chatting back and forth while, you know, like Yassop's like protecting Usopp from getting hit by like the grunts, and like Usopp's like trying to, you know, take out Van Auger or something like that. That'd be kind of fun. I don't want Yassop to die. I don't want that. But, you know, I do kind of want there to be a moment where he finds out that Bakina is dead, and maybe he does kind of break down a little bit at that, and like maybe he kind of apologizes to Usopp for not being there for him. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Next on the list we have Sanji's fathers. So we'll start with Vince Milk Judge, even though we learn about Zeph first, who's Sanji's father figure, but now we're gonna talk about Vince Milk Judge first, who's of course the father of Reiju, Nichiji, Niji, Ichiji, Niji, Sanji, and Yanji. Or pink, red, blue, black. The Sanji has yellow hair, and then green, and just, you know, poison pink, sparking red. I don't remember what blue was or whatever. You know, stealth black, and then wench green. I don't remember what Niji's, you know, connotation was or whatever. Something blue. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't care. The only two Vince Milk siblings I like are Reiju and Sanji. The other three can go jump off of a cliff and fall into the ocean for all I care. And Judge can go with them for all I care. We, of course, know that Judge experimented on all of his children, experimented on Reiju after she was born, and then experimented on his wife, Sola, while she was pregnant with their 4 boys. And then, of course, wanted to manipulate the boys into the point where they would have no negative human emotions, which, of course, in Judge's minds are probably anything that would be considered weak, anything to do with love or anything to do with pity or sadness or fear or something along those lines. And, and of course, Sola drank the poison to prevent that from happening. And then, of course, Sanji's the only one that didn't get, that had emotion and everything out of the 3 boys. And Judge, Sanji had a chance in the beginning, but he just never was good. He wasn't ever to, hold up to what Judge wanted out of the boys. And in doing so, that of course led to Sanji being kind of removed from the picture. AKA his death was faked. And then Sanji was locked in a cell in the bottom of their castle with a mask on for however long. And Judge basically pretended that like Sanji didn't exist anymore. Like he still had food sent to him, and Sanji still was able to get like food and ingredients and cookbooks and utensils and everything, so he could still cook. He just he had to have his mask unlocked every time he wanted to eat. And of course, so we had those moments, but we also have like, Judge is training with the other, with the other 3 boys, and then with Reiju, and he's like, "You guys are so fun. I love you guys." And like Sanji is just like, why is this happening? Sanji's trapped out of the cellar. And then of course, when the Germa crossed the red line to go into the East Blue, Judge, of course, this is when Reiju helps Sanji escape, and Judge just basically lets him go and says, "Yeah, sure, fine, you can go. You go. You leave. Never mention you're a Vinsmoke. Never mention you're from Germa. None of that. If I ever hear that you did that, I will find you and I will kill you." And Sanji goes off. And then, of course, that leads into where Sanji, ended up on the orbit, and then the Cook Pirates, or whatever they were called, that Zeph was captain of attack, and then, of course, Zeph and Sanji are the only 2 that survive, which, of course, leads me into talking about Zeph. And, of course, Zeph and Sanji sit on that, that sea stack rock thing for 28 days, and, Sanji finds out that, it's either in the 4 kids, it's either Zeph didn't eat anything and like his leg was cut off during the during like the sinking of the ship, and like he just didn't eat anything for the 28 days, or in the actual manga, and I think in the actual anime, it's no, Zeph ate his own leg and gave Sanji all the food, which is one of the moments that makes Sanji change. I mean, like, he was already a better person than his siblings, but now he understands the benefit of, or like the idea that sometimes you just have to make do with what you have. And, you have to scrounge as much as you can. You have to work with what you've got. And, you can't waste food. Sanji doesn't like it when people waste food. And, Sanji and Zeph, of course, are saved from the rock, and then, of course, they build up, the Baratie, and they build up all the rest of the, they got Patty and whoever else that are working there and everything. And, and then, of course, that's, several years later or whatever is when Luffy and the others show up, and then, of course, Sanji fights to protect the Baratie, and Sanji is, like, the sous chef, this is the assistant sous chef or whatever, and, of course, Zeph is, of course, in charge of the Baratie, and he, we see him in the flashbacks that we get from Sanji of, beating Sanji every time he got a recipe wrong or didn't break it up to, Zeph's standards and everything. And of course, that's where a lot of Sanji's respect for women came from, was from Zeph. It's, if you ever kick a woman, if I ever find out that you hurt a woman, I will kill myself. And of course, that just, cemented into Sanji's mind. I do kind of want Sanji to get over that hurdle, because we've seen a lot of the Straw Hats get over hurdles. We've seen Usopp have to be brave even when he's terrified out of his mind. He's been brave. Same thing with Nami. We've seen, them break past different limits and different barriers that they've had to. Yet we cannot make Sanji understand the concept of, there is a difference between kicking a woman who is your friend and who is your ally and who is innocent, and kicking a woman who is trying to frickin' kill you, dude. But given what just happened with Black Maria and the manga and everything, I don't think that's going to happen. Unless it's like he has to choose between maybe like in the final battle, like maybe, Katarina Devon is about to, is about to kill Nami and Robin, and Sanji has to choose between either, he can't save Nami and Robin, he can't like physically move them, like they're trapped in something, but Katarina Devon is about to kill them, and Sanji may have to end up like he has to attack Katarina Devon in order to prevent Nami and Robin from being killed. And he has to do that or else they're gonna die. Or Carrot, if Carrot joins the crew, might be in there too. I want Carrot to join the crew. I want the bunny on the crew. I also want Yamato on the crew, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not. We'll have to see what happens. But what ends up, and Sanji and Zeph have that relationship, and of course then Sanji goes off with the Straw Hats, and Zeph is very encouraging of that to a degree in his own way. And of course, we see in like the cover pages and everything, Zeph being very proud of Sanji. They make like this extra boat that kind of looks like Sanji's horrible wanted poster. And then of course then we get to Zoe and then Whole Cake, where we find out about, oh, Sanji's not actually an orphan. He's a prince. His father's a psychotic Nazi person that liked science and experimented on him and his siblings and then cast Sanji out. His sister's awesome. His brothers are jerks. And his father didn't care if Sanji died. And then, of course, Sanji has to get over those hurdles of, dealing with his father and his brothers and everything. And that's a whole big part of what happens with, Whole Cake and everything. And then, of course, we have it where, we have like the opposite moment where, Sanji shows up at the wedding and everything. Well, he was at the wedding anyway, but he, frees his father and his siblings from, Sparrow's candy cage thing. And he frees them. And he's like, I don't remember if that's then or if that's a little bit later, but like where he like confronts Judge and he's like, no, you cannot disown me. I disown you. You were the one that pulled me back into this. You were the one that didn't let me keep my freedom that I had. I don't want my sister to die. I don't care if you or my brothers died because you guys are not my family. She is and Mom was. And my real father is Zeph. He is the one that raised me. He is the one that taught me what it was to be a good person. You did nothing of that. I disown you. I am not a Vinsmoke anymore. And the only person, kind of to a degree, that I will ever show up for in this kingdom again is Reiju. If she needs me. And, we don't know what'll happen with that. Judge may end up, we may never see Judge again, or we may get like a cover story about Judge and the Vinsmokes. I kind of doubt that at this point in time. But, we might hear something about them later on, like maybe they were all captured, but like Reiju escaped, like maybe Judge learned from some of his mistakes with what he had done with Sanji. And, because he had, Judge had sent, the 3 boys and Reiju to help make sure that Sanji and the rest of the Straw Hats escaped. And the Fire Tank Pirates were all able to escape Totland. That he helped with that. And there might be a moment where maybe we find out that, via flashback or something like that, like maybe Reiju shows up at some point, and I have no idea if this would actually happen, but like maybe Reiju shows up at the Straw Hat ship at some point, like maybe after Wano or maybe somewhere else. Like maybe she had found a way to like put like a Viva card or something inside of like Sanji's raid suit or something. I don't know. Or, she did something that allowed her to be able to find Sanji no matter where he was. And maybe, or Judge did something that did that. I don't know. But, Oda could come up with something that allowed Reiju to find them for all I know. I don't know. But, like, maybe what would end up happening is, like, maybe Reiju finds Sanji again, and Sanji's like, what are you doing here? How did you get away from the Germa? And she's like, Dad, our father and our brothers are either dead or captured. Father made sure I escaped. It looks like Judge has blonde hair, and that's why we think one of the reasons why he despises Sanji so much is because Sanji looks like him. And it's also one of the reasons why he couldn't bring himself to kill Sanji. I also do think that Judge had some form of affection for Sola. I think to a degree he did love her. He cared about his science and building up the German kingdom more, but I do think he still kind of loved Sola. Um, and I think that's why he could never bring himself to like remarry, because obviously he could have like remarried or had like a harem of wives. He was the king of the country. He could do whatever the frick he wanted, obviously, with as much as that was drilled into the people that he could do whatever he wanted to him. He could have, as many wives as he wanted, and then had so many children that were all, the experimented versions on, like with the three boys and with Reiju and everything, and have them be as devoted to him. And of course, they have that moment, that programming in the kids that they can't defy their father. Reiju has kind of found ways to get slightly around that, but not by much, and the three boys can't. Sanji can, but the other three can't, and Reiju can kind of do it a little bit. But, like, maybe it'll be revealed that, Reiju had to escape, and Judge allowed himself and the boys to be captured in order to allow Reiju to escape. In order to allow Reiju and maybe some of the other, like, the maids and the servants and everything that were not clones, allow them time to escape. Maybe Judge is like, me and the boys deserve this punishment. I'm the one that made them do this. Reiju at least have some humanity left. Let her go and have something. Maybe she can find Sanji. I don't know. I would have liked it if Reiju like joined the Straw Hats. That'd be fine. But moving on down the list. Of course, Zeph was, of course, being threatened about, or Sanji was being threatened that, if you don't agree to this wedding, if you don't go through this wedding, I have contacts, they will go and kill Zeph and everyone at that restaurant and then burn it into the water. And, and everything. And, of course, Sanji agreed with that. And, of course, at the end of that arc, when Sanji's making food for everyone, we cut to Zeph, who's making food for a bunch of pirates that have showed up. And, of course, they're making the same dish, and I like that moment. But down the line to the next Straw Hat related parent, we have Dr. Hirluck, who's of course the father figure of Chopper, Tony Chopper. Chopper's reindeer father, just like I mentioned with his mother, had no reason whatsoever to have any, Chopper has no relation to them. They kicked him out of the herd when he, because he had a blue nose, and then because he ate the fruit, and of course Chopper had the whole horrible experience of being attacked by humans because they thought he was a Yeti. And then he finds Hirluck, and Hirluck and him, they bond, and then it gets stronger and stronger, and eventually, Chopper looks at Hirluck like his father, and Hirluck says that Chopper is his son, and of course Chopper wants to find a way to help Hirluck, and of course he gets the mushroom and everything, and Hirluck at one point even, when he knows that he's going to die, he starts trying to get Chopper to leave him alone, tries to scare Chopper off, being angry and shouting and loud and mean and trying to scare Chopper off because he doesn't want Chopper to watch him die. And of course, Chopper still goes and gets the medicine, gets the mushroom and takes it back. And, Hirluck takes it because it's like, Chopper risked everything to try to get this medicine, but it's going to kill me. I'll still drink it anyway. And, and then of course that's when he goes off and he has to, that's when he, blows himself up in front of Wapol and Dalton. And that does kind of lead to Dalton, Hirluck's death, that amazing speech that he gives before he, blows himself up. So he doesn't die by the disease. He doesn't die by the mushroom Chopper gave him. He kind of goes out on his own terms and makes a statement in the process. And of course, Chopper sees this, and that makes him fly into the rage and attack Dalton. Well, he's going to try to attack Wapol, but Dalton gets in his way and then calms him down and sends him off. And of course, that leads to Chopper, begging Dr. Kureha to train him, and she does. And that's where, Chopper's relationship with her is kind of like the closest thing to a mother figure that he has. And we, of course, know that, kind of Hirluck's legacy that has been passed down is Chopper wants to become a real doctor, and he has become an amazing doctor. We just saw what he did with the Isoni virus, where he was able to make the antidote to that and make it airborne and everything to help fix everyone in that hall and the live stage area and everything. And, so we have those moments that has happened that show how far Chopper's, medical experience has come just from, Hero Luck was not a good doctor. Heart of a doctor. Not so much the training of one. But of course, the Sakura Kingdom, or Drum Island, is now called, the Sakura Kingdom, because, Dr. Kureha had taken, what Dr. Hero Luck had been working on for so long to make the cherry blossoms to help heal his sickness. He then, she finally had that. And then, of course, when Chopper is leaving with the Straw Hats, that's when she sets off, like, the dye or whatever to, like, dye all of the snow pink. And then, of course, we see Kureha later on with Dalton and everything over the course of the cover pages or at other points in time. And, of course, at Reverie, we saw them. And, so we get all those moments. And Kureha seems extremely proud of Chopper. And I'm pretty sure that if Hero Luck were still around, he would be extremely proud of Chopper as well. Next on the list. This is just a theory spot that I'm putting here. I might do a little more. I might do a video about this. I might not. I'm not 100% sure, but this is just kind of a slight theory that I have into who Robin's father is. There's the whole theory that Robin's father is Dragon, and she's Luffy's half-sister, and that, like, maybe Dragon and Olvia, met at some point, and they shared some ideals and a couple of nights of passion, and then, Olvia had Robin. Or there's the thought that Robin's father is Goldie Roger, and that she is Ace's half-sister. Via same reasons as with, Dragon. Night of Passion, blah, blah, blah. Those could be very true. It's kind of assumed that Robin's father has black hair because her mother has white hair and Robin has black hair. So her father kind of needs to have black hair by default. But genetics are weird. Genetics are weird in One Piece, particularly if you get into fishmen and minks, because those are just weird genetics that get messed around with there. But of course, what ends up happening is my theory in regards to, like, who Robin's father is, or one of the other theories that I like is, and I read this in a fan fiction, and I think I've only seen it once, but I could be wrong, is that her father is Aokiji Kuzan, former admiral. And, I don't know how much evidence there is for this. I mean, there's the slight evidence, he has black hair too. He has kind of, darker skin, kind of the way that Robin does to a degree. But then, or darker skin that Robin had for a while and everything. But, Robin's kind of gotten a little more pale, but we don't know, blah, blah, blah. But, he let her leave Ohara as a child. He let her leave. Obviously, Aokiji is not one of the ones like, Kizaru or, Akainu, Sakazuki, who are completely devoted to doing whatever the world government and the Marines tell them to do. He will find loopholes. He will just say, oh, they got away. I don't know. He pulled that off with them at, when he interacted with them after dealing with Foxy. And there's a lot that goes along with that. He let her go then. He said that he'd been watching over her for a long time, which, if he truly wanted to bring her in, he could have, but he never did. Kuzan was strong enough to literally just freeze all of the Straw Hats, take Robin, and leave. And they would have just sat there and either died from the frost, from dying that way, or they would have sat there and eventually thawed out in the sun. And then, Luffy would have still been like, okay, we're going to go get Robin back. And, they still would have stormed into, wherever Robin was at that point in time. They still would have stormed into there. But I don't, it's like, if Aokiji is Robin's father, I'm fine with that. I think that would be a very interesting thing that they could bring up at some point. Don't know if they ever would, but they might. That's just my theory on that one. I might do a video where I expand a little bit more on that, but maybe not. We'll see. Next up is Tom. who is, of course, the father figure of Frankie and Iceberg. We know nothing about Iceberg's biological parents. As far as we're aware, he's just an orphan. And Frankie pretty much just assumes he's an orphan because his parents were pirates and they threw him off the ship or left him at Water 7 when he was a child. And then, Tom, took him in, and Kokoro took him in, and they were kind of his, surrogate parents. And of course, Tom trained Frankie in how to be a shipwright and everything. And of course, we get, Frankie helping with building the Puffing Tom. We get Frankie with helping, with everything that happens there. And then, of course, we have the moment, and of course, the flashback that we get with Frankie where, Frankie gets accused of his Frankie bots or whatever, battle Frankies being used to, attack people. And, because of Spondum, because he's an a-hole. And, Frankie and Iceberg and Tom are put on trial. And of course, Tom takes all the punishment for it and claiming, allows himself to be the one that takes the punishment instead of Frankie and Iceberg. And, he tells Tom, or Frankie or Iceberg tells Tom, that was wrong. Tom tells Frankie, I'll get the names right eventually. Tom tells Frankie that, whatever you make, even if other people may hate it, you need to be proud of it. You need to be proud of what it is that you made. And, we have, later on we see Frankie's building skills with building the Thousand Sunny, with all the other skills that he developed later on with building all those other, with the Frankie bots and everything. All the battle Frankies that he's made that are now currently being used in Wano. And, all this other stuff that he's done. And that's all based on what Tom taught him. And obviously the Sunny is loved not just by Frankie and Iceberg and the rest of the shipwrights that built it, but also by the Straw Hats and such. It's loved by them. And, we have those moments. And of course, Tom's legacy lives on in Frankie and then Iceberg. Iceberg built up Water 7, made it even more prosperous, built the Galley Law Company and did all of that. And, and then we also have it that, Frankie is, of course, he's, Iron Man Frankie, or was Cyborg Frankie for so long and everything. And, his dream that came from Tom is he wanted to build a ship that would be able to sail around the world and that he would sail with it. And that, that came from Tom. He built the Sunny out of the atom wood that, the Oro Jackson was built out of. That was, the same ship that was, used by the King of the Pirates and everything. And, we'll have to see what happens with that. I'm hoping Frankie's dream happens, that he is able to sail, the Sunny all the way around the world and so many other places after Luffy becomes King of the Pirates and everything. Then he helps all the others achieve their dream, Nami with her map, Frankie with wanting to sail around the world, getting Brook back to Laboon, all of that stuff, that they all want to do that. And, we'll see what happens with that. Maybe there'll be a moment where, maybe Frankie does find out from someone that, yes, Tom died at some point in Impel Down or whatever. Yes, he died. And, maybe Frankie and Iceberg, when Frankie goes back to Water 7 at some point, he sees Iceberg, he sees Kokoro, he sees the giant frog, which, of course, Frankie, of course, became a cyborg because he tried to stop the train that the Puffing Tom... Was it the Puffing Tom? Yeah, I think it was a Puffing Tom. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, it was Puffing Tom because Rocket Man's the other train. It was Puffing Tom that, was trying to, that was escorting Frankie, or that was escorting Tom, and of course, Frankie got hit by it, and then of course he had to turn himself into a cyborg in order to survive and made himself powered on cola. Which, I've explained that to my coworker, who doesn't really have a whole lot of reference for anime because his kids are my age. He knows Pokemon, but he doesn't know anything else. And I've given him that explanation of what Frankie is. He's like, well, he's a pirate cyborg shipwright that has a fridge for a stomach and runs on cola. Okay. It's fun explaining things to some of my coworkers for some of the things that I watch, and they're like, okay. that doesn't make sense, but okay. But it might be that like Frankie goes back to Water 7 at some point and he sees Iceberg and Kokoro again. And maybe they finally make kind of a, not a shrine to Tom or anything, but maybe they finally, you know, make something like a grave marker for Tom or something like that that they can go and visit. Maybe on that Scrap Heap Island, or maybe where, you know, Tom's workshop had been. Maybe they'll do that. I don't know. Next one is we're kind of out of the Straw Hat parents now because we don't know anything about Brooke's parents. As I stated back in the Mother's Day video, my joke is that Brooke's father is very tall and bald and wore a top hat, and his mother was kind of short and had the very frizzy hair and everything. And like his father used a cane and his mother played a violin or whatever the case was. And that's, you know, that's where Brooke's family came from. We don't know about Jinbei's parents. You know, I don't think Jinbei was an orphan, but, you know, maybe he had like at least a somewhat happy childhood, and then, you know, he joined, you know, Neptune's guard and everything, and he had that, you know, his friendship with, you know, Fisher Tiger and everything. So we don't know too much about like Jinbei's parents or anything like that. That might get explained at some point, or it may not. I don't know. So the next kind of father figure that we're introduced to in the story is actually Nefertari Cobra, who I mentioned a bit earlier, who is, of course, the father of Nefertari Vivi, who is, of course, the princess of Alabasta. Cobra is the king of Alabasta. And, you know, we see his devotion not only to his daughter, but to his kingdom. He was willing to, you know, sacrifice his own life in order to protect Vivi. I would assume to a degree he was somewhat aware of, you know, her and oh frick, what's the guy with the curly hair's name? Ingram. About the two of them and Karu going off to join Baroque Works and, you know, infiltrate Baroque Works and everything. He may have been aware of that and supportive of it, worried about his daughter and his advisor, and her duck. His daughter, advisor, and her duck. I'm surprised that was, I don't know if that was ever the name of a One Piece chapter, but that would have been funny. The princess, the advisor, and the duck. Okay. He probably knew some form of what was going on with that. We've seen some bits of like them pop up in like the cover stories and everything, and of course we saw them at Reverie, and, you know, Vivi and her father very much love each other. You know, Vivi's mother is dead, so her father is the only biological family that she has left. And of course, we don't know exactly what happened at Reverie, because it could be that Cobra got taken captive after he talked to the Celestial Dragons, or he was killed, or something else happened to Vivi. We don't want that. Vivi's been through too much. All of the Straw Hats and a lot of their friends have been through too much. But we have that there with Cobra and Vivi. He seems very protective of her. He also was not like this king that just like kept her in like a gilded cage. He allowed her to, because he allowed her to go and join like the Sansan clan with, you know, be, you know, roughhouse and everything with you know, Koza, and, you know, form that bond and that friendship with them and everything. And, you know, he allowed her to do that. He didn't have anything against her trying to do that. He was very cautious in not wanting her to get hurt, but he's like, I want her to be happy, and she was. And so we have that moment there. The other Alabasta father that we kind of interact with is Toto, who is Koza's father. Koza is, you know, Vivi's best friend, as I mentioned, from when they were children. And Toto is his father. We see them, I think it's at Yuba is where we see Toto. We see him in a flashback with Vivi, and he seems to be a rather large, rotund man. And then by the time we see him in the actual storyline, he is very, very thin and kind of frail looking. And, you know, he's the one that's digging in the desert trying to find more water and everything. And, you know, him and, you know, Vivi recognizes him, and he recognizes Vivi, of course. And, you know, she's very happy to see him. And, you know, Koza was trying to do what he thought was best for the country, with build up the Revolutionary Army there and everything. And Unfortunately, it didn't go quite the way it was supposed to because of course, Crocodile manipulating everything. Um, but of course, one of the other things that happens is, Toto is the one that gives Luffy, the water because Luffy and him dig more, and Luffy helps him, and such because it's Toto's goal is to find more more water and everything, and Luffy is like, yeah, I'll help, and he helps him, and they find water, and then Luffy uses that water in order to help him fight, Crocodile. Um, which works very well for that. And we see Toto later on in like the cover pages, as I mentioned, with the brothers, with with what happened there with Godatsu and I think it was Goro. I think Gadetsu and Goro with everything that happened there with building up the hot springs and everything. We have not seen Toto for a while. I don't remember if we've seen him post time skip or not. Um, the next kind of father figure that we get in order in the anime, I think, is Pagaya, who is Kanis's father. And of course, we meet them in Skypiea. Because as far as I remember, we don't see any other fathers in. We don't see any fathers in Mocktown. Pagaya and Kanis, they're of course up in Skypiea. They are the first Skypieans that Luffy and the crew meet. They're of course, they have the angel wings and everything, and Pagaya is the one that explains to Usopp and Luffy and Chopper about like the different dials and everything, and he helps them and he gives Nami the waver, and we see him at one point. Kanis is about to be struck by lightning. That's being sent by, I think it's being sent by Eneru. And Pagaya pushes Kanis out of the way of the lightning and takes the lightning attack. So she's not hurt. And I'm like, yes. Yes, you good father. And we see them later. Kanis and Pagaya both make it through. What happens with Skypiea and everything. They both survive. They both start to become friends with the Shandorians, and the Shandorians and the Skypieans start to work together more. Kanis becomes friends with Laki, and Pagaya. We see them a little bit in like the post time skip cover pages and everything, and they still seem very happy together, so that's good. The next kind of in order bit that we get, I think, is also in the Skypiea arc. We get Kalgara and Moose. Kalgara is, of course, the great warrior of the Shandorians and everything. He was friends with, Mont Blanc Nolan, and, Kalgara was prepared to sacrifice his daughter, Moose, to try and appease, the snake gods because of the tree sickness that was going around. And, Nolan shows up and saves, Moose, and then eventually him and Kalgara become friends, of course, and then of course we have all that issue that happens there with Skypiea and everything, but Kalgara seems to be a very good father to Moose, and Moose grew up and ended up marrying Seto. I made the Seto Kaiba joke in the Mother's Day video, so I won't do that, but so we have Kalgara there, and he seemed to be very proud of his daughter, and that line, Kalgara's line, of course, is now being held by Wiper, who is the current descendant of Kalgara. Not too much else there. The next one, I think, in order that we get is it's a non-canon father-daughter duo. It's from the Little East Blue arc, which connects into the Strong World movie. It's where the Straw Hats land on an island that is kind of themed around the East Blue and everything. As a way of like reminding people about the East Blue and everything, a couple of tug at your heartstrings moments. And there's this girl there whose name is Yoko, And she had a father, Ryudo, I think was his name. He was a Marine captain who, well, I don't know if he was a captain, but he was a Marine. And he didn't like the fact that, because the Little East Blue was so poor, they couldn't afford to be able to pay the tribute to the Celestial Dragon, so they weren't being protected by the Marines. So he gave up his post in the Marines and then protected the island until he was killed at one point by pirates. And then Yoko, this is they're in the same arc where in the brothers video where the Amigos pirates show up, where those two brothers show up and cause a lot of problems. And Yoko has a giant flying electric beetle that is awesome. And I think it's just called Boss, if I remember correctly. But she has that. And, Yuko, whichever one you refer to it as, I can't remember exactly which way it's pronounced. She has issues with the Straw Hats when they show up, and then by the end of it, she's like, "Oh no, we're fine. They're good pirates. This is okay." The next father figure that we get is Saint Roswald. Horrible, horrible human being that he is, who is the father of Saint Charlos and Saint Shalria, who are, of course, they're all celestial dragons. They're the horrible celestial dragon family that we're introduced to in Sabaody. I mentioned a lot of this back in the brothers video with Charlos, and insert reason to use the image of Luffy punching Charlos out. Always find a reason to use that. And also Milzgard hitting Charlos with a bat. Worth it. Luffy and the Straw Hats like to mess with this family a lot, and they deserve it, and they haven't gotten nearly enough punishment, in my opinion. And hopefully at whatever point in time when the Celestial Dragon system is gotten rid of, some of these guys will be some of the first ones that we see getting their comeuppance, hopefully. Hopefully we'll see what happens with that. The next kind of father-ish figure that we get is kind of Whitebeard, because Whitebeard is kind of the pseudo-father figure that Ace has. I will go over Goldie Roger in a moment. But we have Whitebeard, Edward Whitebeard Newgate, who is, of course, the father figure for Ace, because, Ace lost his mother and everything, and all of that we know about, of course, from Ace's backstory. And Ace, along with, Marco and a bunch of the other Whitebeard pirates or their, adjacent crews, allied crews, call Whitebeard Pops all the time, and he always refers to them as his children. Even after Whitebeard's gone, Marco still refers to him as Pops throughout the Wano arc that we see, Marco around. He's like, "Oh yeah, that was, Pops wanted this, and Pops had been here and everything." And, so we have that moment. And, we've seen how protective Whitebeard is of his children. And, and it's not just Ace. I mean, he attacked Marineford in order to save one of his own children that was going to be executed. And, he would have done the same thing for Marco, or for Squard, or for, the DeClavin brothers, or for Whitey Bay, or for Jozu, or for, insert name of whatever other Whitebeard pirate member there was, except maybe Teach, because by this point in time he, defected and everything, and killed Thatch and everything. Although, if it had happened, if Blackbeard had been captured, before he had outed himself, Whitebeard probably still would have gone and, attacked Marineford in order to protect one of his children. Would have attacked whatever Marine vessel they were on, attacked Marineford, whatever, would have still gone to war with the Marines over one of his children. And we see that with Whitebeard. We see that with the Whitebeard pirates. They were a family. They kind of still all are a family. They're a little spread out a little bit more, but they're still a family. And, Ace tried to kill Whitebeard several times when he first met him, And then eventually Whitebeard just like, it's like, I just love the image. I think that was like the image of like Marco just like looking down at Ace and going like, you're not going to be able to kill him. Others have tried so much better ideas than you have, and none of it worked. You are not going to be able to kill Pops. And eventually Ace just like, acquiesces and it's like, fine. I won't try to kill Whitebeard anymore. Yeah, I'll join your crew. And he does, of course. But then, of course, the other father that Ace has is, of course, Gol D. Roger, who is, of course, his biological father, Gol D. Ace, Horcus D. Ace, because of his mother. And as much as Ace hates his father, I do think that Roger still, to a degree, loved Ace. I mean, like, he was willing to, he left Rouge probably not too long after he found out that Rouge was pregnant. He left Rouge to go and be executed, and then he told Garp that, okay, I have a kid on the way, I have a son on the way, whatever. He's here on this island, this is his mother. Find him and raise him and keep him safe, because you and I both know that a child should not be punished for a parent's sin. And I think that Roger was smart enough to understand the fact that probably the world government is going to send a bunch of Marines to try to track down any woman that may have my child. And that child and that woman do not deserve to be punished simply because the child shares my blood or because the woman loved me. Because beyond that, we don't think Rouge did anything wrong. As far as we are aware, Rouge was never a pirate. She was just, this woman that Roger fell in love with. And, and as I mentioned earlier, if the theory does hold true that like maybe Roger was Robin's father, then, if that theory does hold true, then that just means Robin has even more of a reason for the world government to want to kill her, because she holds the blood of the former pirate, of the, the pirate king. Or even still, like, if she had dragon's blood. But, now, if she is Dragon's daughter, then, Luffy, you have an older sister. Who is it? Robin! Looks at Robin. Does that change our relationship at all? Robin goes, no. You're still my captain. We're still friends. Luffy, okay. Back to whatever it was Luffy was doing. Robin, back to her book. But, Garp, Roger wanted to make sure that Ace was going to be safe and that Rouge would not be punished for something. She unfortunately still kind of self-induced punishment, unfortunately, for having to keep Ace in her stomach for so long and make herself not appear pregnant and everything for so long. And she still died in the end. But, Garp kept his promise. He found Rouge, took Ace back to, after Ace was born, he took Ace back to, Fuchsia Village, probably raised him for, a couple of months or a year or something like that, and then left him with the Dawn. And, Ace hates his father, but then there's the whole theory of, Ace knew Yamato, and Yamato had Odin's logbook, and maybe if Ace learned a little bit more about Roger through the eyes of someone who, was kind of an outsider a little bit, like read all these other adventures that like Roger went on and everything, maybe it would change his opinion a little bit of his father. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But we also know that, Ace at one point told Whitebeard, well, my father's Roger, Gol D. Roger. And Whitebeard didn't care. He's like, does that change who you are? No. Does that change the fact that you want to be on my crew? No. Then I don't care. You're still one of my sons. And, Whitebeard didn't care. He gave Ace a family. I mean, like, Ace had Sabo and he had Luffy. And, that's the other thing that always bugs me is that, like, Ace never found out that Sabo wasn't dead. Ace never found that out. He never got to learn that. Never got to learn that Sabo was not dead. and that the three brothers never got to be reunited. It would have been very nice if they had, but they never did. But of course, what ends up happening is, Luffy and Luffy helped Whitebeard showed up, of course, at the battle and everything, and him and Luffy worked well together in order to help try to save Ace, and it would have worked, but Whitebeard still protected his children and everything as they fled. So I did that. I guess I kind of get it in the video on okay, so Gol D. Roger also is kind of like a close thing to a father to Shanks and Buggy, because like him and Rayleigh were kind of like the closest thing to fathers that Shanks and Buggy had throughout like the whole time that Shanks and Buggy were growing up on their crew. And they'd been on that crew since they were like 8 years old or whatever, so they'd been on that crew for a while. So much while they were growing up and everything. We don't know exactly when the two of them joined the crew. Like, were they just like brought onto the crew as like children or whatever? Well, they were children, but like, when were they brought onto the crew? How did Roger find them? I want this in a flashback. I want this in a flashback. I want Shanks to explain to Luffy at some point, or like Buggy explains to Luffy at some point that it's like, he found Shanks first in the West Blue, and then they ended up in the Grand Line at some point, and then they found me, and yeah, I've been on the ship ever since. We were both this age or whatever. That's where we grew up with, like, Gol D. Roger and, Silver's Rayleigh as, like, our kind of surrogate fathers. And I guess maybe, like, Toki might fall into the, like, surrogate mother category a little bit in that case. But I'll be talking about Oden and the post-time skip ones. But I just, Shanks and Buggy kind of had Roger and Rayleigh as, like, fathers to a degree. And, Shanks may still kind of think of Roger that way a little bit because it was the closest thing that he had. Last one, unfortunately, I have to end on a bad father. Fortunately, I'll be ending both videos on bad fathers, I think. Because at the moment, the most recent father that we've been introduced to in Wano, to a degree, is Kaido. And I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to end the video on Kaido or end the video on Oden, and I'm leaning more towards Oden just because he was a better father when I do the post-time skip. But this one I'll be landing on a bad father to end with, and that will be Lookout the Third, who is the biological father of Sabo and the adopted father of Stelly. Lookout the Third is a horrible, horrible, horrible human being that was willing to torture children in order to get his son back. He was perfectly fine with burning down tons of innocent people inside of the Grey Terminal simply to make the kingdom look better. He was going to basically force his son, Sabo, to marry whatever family was going to offer basically the highest price for Sabo's hand, or, whatever would get him, the higher status. And he did not seem to care at all when, Sabo died. And, now he has Stelly, who's like the perfect little heir that he wanted. And Stelly is now king after, Lookout and Stelly plotted and killed the previous king. So that's basically what we get there for Lookout the Third. Horrible father, horrible human being. Yeah, pretty much it. Horrible father, horrible human being. No redeeming qualities. Doesn't even seem to have a lot of affection for his own wife. Nope, not really. Yeah, so the other one, which is the next video for the Father's Day, is going to be put out the day after this one goes up. This one is going to be going up on this Saturday, which is the day that it's going up, obviously. And then the other one will go up actually on Father's Day itself. I'm recording them a little bit in advance. And then I'll edit them and post them. So that's what I have for this video. If there was a father from One Piece that you think I missed, that you think was important enough to the story that I just what father was that? That I missed, I apologize. Comment and tell me who it was, or tell me which father that you think out of these ones, not out of the post time skip, but out of the pre time skip ones, are the worst fathers. or which ones are the best fathers, or just whatever the case may be. And of course, there's always on the Shanks side, there's always the theory that like Shanks is the child, the father of Makino's child, which I am perfectly fine with. If that's the case, I am perfectly happy with that concept. I love Makino and Shanks. I think they make a great couple. And if that's their kid, then well, it's obviously Makino's kid. But if it's Shanks' kid too, then that's great too. So that's what I have for this video. I thank you very much for watching, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers that are watching this. Or happy Father's Day to all of the kind of surrogate fathers or father figures. And remember to wish your father or father figure or your grandfather or whatever the case may be a happy Father's Day. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.
You can pour drinks on me. You can throw food at me. You can even spit on me. I'll just laugh that stuff off. But good reason or not, nobody hurts a friend of mine.